The fluorescent lights of Westfield Retail hummed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the meticulously arranged shelves. Eric Thompson stood near the customer service desk, his crisp white shirt slightly wrinkled from a long morning of micromanaging. At 45, he carried the weight of years of retail management like a worn-out badge of honor. The store was his kingdom, and he knew every inch of it like the back of his hand. The bell above the entrance chimed, cutting through the quiet morning routine. Eric's eyes darted toward the sound, his body instinctively tensing. Most mornings brought a predictable parade of early shoppers, retirees hunting for deals, stay-at-home parents managing children, delivery workers grabbing quick essentials. But this entrance was different. Olivia Rodriguez stepped into the store, her presence immediately commanding attention. Her tailored navy blazer spoke of corporate precision, contrasting sharply with the casual retail environment. Her leather portfolio was tucked neatly under her arm, a shield of professionalism that seemed almost out of place among the discount signs and clearance racks. Eric watched her approach, his mind already racing with assumptions. Her heels clicked against the linoleum floor, a steady rhythm that seemed to challenge the store's mundane atmosphere. She walked with purpose, her gaze scanning the store with a calculated efficiency that made Eric uncomfortable. Years of management had taught Eric to read people quickly. He prided himself on his ability to size up potential employees in seconds, and right now, everything about Olivia Rodriguez set off his internal alarm bells. She was too polished, too confident for a typical job applicant at Westfield Retail. As she reached the customer service desk, Eric deliberately took his time acknowledging her. He finished organizing a stack of return forms, adjusted a pen holder, and checked the time on his watch. A deliberate display of disinterest. When he finally looked up, his expression was a carefully crafted mask of professional detachment. "Can I help you?" Eric's voice was flat, almost challenging. Olivia's smile never wavered. "Good morning. I'm here about the store manager position." Her voice was clear, confident, with just a hint of a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Eric's internal monologue began immediately. Another applicant, he thought, probably fresh out of some online management course, thinking she knows how to run a retail store. He'd seen dozens like her, eager, inexperienced, full of theoretical knowledge, but lacking real-world understanding. "Do you have an appointment?" he asked, his tone suggesting that she most certainly did not. Olivia reached into her portfolio and pulled out a crisp, well-prepared document. "I have a meeting with the regional hiring manager. I believe my application was forwarded last week." Eric took the document, his fingers deliberately brushing it in a way that suggested he was doing her a favor. He scanned the paperwork, his expression growing more complicated with each line. The credentials were impressive, too impressive for a store like this. The store around them continued its morning rhythm. A young employee restocked shelves in the background. An elderly customer browsed the greeting card section. But the space between Eric and Olivia crackled with unspoken tension. Eric's mind raced. He'd been managing this store for years, building a reputation for no-nonsense leadership. He knew the intricacies of retail management, the delicate balance of inventory, staff management, customer relations. What could this outsider possibly know about running a real store? "I see you've worked in some interesting positions," Eric said, his emphasis on interesting, making it sound more like an accusation than a compliment. But retail is a different world. Not everyone can handle the day-to-day challenges. Olivia met his gaze directly. "I'm looking forward to understanding those challenges," she responded, her voice a perfect blend of respect and quiet confidence. Little did Eric know, this moment was the beginning of a transformation that would change everything: the store, his career, and most importantly, himself. Olivia Rodriguez was about to become far more than just another job applicant. The morning continued around them, oblivious to the significant moment unfolding between the seasoned store manager and the mysterious applicant. Outside, the autumn sun cast long shadows, a silent witness to the professional drama about to unfold. The conference room at the back of Westfield Retail felt more like an interrogation chamber than a professional interview space. Harsh fluorescent lights cast unflattering shadows, and the worn laminate table bore the scars of countless past meetings. Eric Thompson sat across from Olivia Rodriguez, his posture rigid, a manila folder open between them. "So," he began, his tone deliberately casual, "tell me about your previous experience." Olivia had anticipated this moment. Her resume was a carefully curated narrative of professional achievement, but she knew resumes rarely told the full story. She leaned forward slightly, her hands clasped neatly on the table. "I've spent the last decade working with companies in transition," she explained. "My specialty is identifying operational inefficiencies and implementing strategic improvements." Eric's eyebrow raised slightly. The words sounded rehearsed, too polished. "Fancy way of saying you're a consultant," he interrupted. "Consultants rarely understand the day-to-day realities of running an actual store." The comment was designed to throw her off balance, but Olivia remained calm, her smile never wavering. "Every organization has its unique challenges," she responded. "In my last position, I helped a struggling retail chain reduce operational costs by 22% while improving employee satisfaction." Eric flipped through her resume, his fingers drumming an irregular rhythm on the folder. Something about her credentials both impressed and threatened him. Her educational background from Stanford was impeccable, her work history, a series of impressive turnarounds. "Stanford, huh?" he said, his tone suggesting he found the prestigious education more suspicious than impressive. "Must be nice to have all those fancy degrees. But degrees don't translate to real-world management." It was a calculated move. Eric had perfected the art of the intimidating interview, designed to expose weaknesses and challenge candidates. He'd watched countless potential managers wilt under his pointed questions, their confidence crumbling under his carefully constructed scrutiny. Olivia recognized the tactic immediately. This wasn't just an interview, it was a performance. Eric was testing her, probing for any sign of vulnerability. "I'm curious," Eric continued, shifting tactics. "What made you interested in a management position at Westfield Retail? Seems like a step down from your previous roles." The question hung in the air, loaded with implication. Most candidates would rush to defend themselves, to explain and justify. But Olivia took her time, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes the most significant opportunities come in unexpected packages," she said finally. "I'm interested in building strong, sustainable retail environments. Not every transformation happens in a Fortune 500 company." Eric leaned back, studying her. Her response was too smooth, too prepared. He decided to dig deeper, to find the crack in her professional armor. "Tell me about your family," he said suddenly. The question was inappropriate, potentially illegal, but Eric had been conducting interviews his way for years. Olivia's smile didn't falter, but something shifted in her eyes. A momentary hardness that disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. "My background is in business management," she responded carefully. "I believe my professional qualifications are what's most relevant to this position." The deflection was masterful, but Eric wasn't finished. He pulled out a series of performance metrics from the store, spreading them across the table like a gambler revealing a winning hand. "These numbers tell a story," he said. "Experience matters, real-world experience, not just theoretical knowledge." Each question was a potential landmine, each response an opportunity for him to chip away at her confidence. But Olivia Rodriguez was no ordinary candidate. She had navigated far more challenging professional landscapes than this small-town retail store interview. As the interview continued, the tension grew. Eric's questions became more pointed, more personal. He asked about her age, her previous job changes, her ability to manage a team. Each question was designed to make her uncomfortable, to expose some perceived weakness. But Olivia remained unshaken. Her responses were measured, professional, revealing just enough to be interesting, without giving Eric the satisfaction of finding a vulnerability. Outside the conference room, the store continued its daily rhythm. Customers browsed shelves, employees restocked inventory, completely unaware of the professional battle being waged behind closed doors. What Eric didn't realize was that this interview was far more than a simple job application. Olivia was gathering her own information, observing his leadership style, making mental notes about the store's management approach. As the interview drew to a close, Eric leaned back with a self-satisfied smile. He believed he had thoroughly vetted and ultimately dismissed another overqualified, inexperienced candidate. Little did he know, Olivia Rodriguez was exactly where she wanted to be, and this was only the beginning of a much larger story. The small coffee shop near downtown bustled with the late afternoon crowd. Olivia Rodriguez sat in a corner booth, her laptop open, a steaming cappuccino growing cold beside her. To the casual observer, she looked like any other professional working remotely. But her current project was anything but ordinary. 5 years earlier, Olivia had been at the top of her game. A rising star in corporate consulting, she built a reputation for turning around struggling businesses with a unique blend of strategic thinking and human-centered leadership. Her last project had been her most challenging and her most transformative. The tech startup had been on the brink of collapse, bleeding money. With a fractured company culture and massive operational inefficiencies, it seemed beyond salvation. Most consultants would have recommended a complete shutdown, but Olivia saw potential where others saw failure. She remembered the first day she walked into their headquarters. The tension was palpable. Employees avoided eye contact, department heads were entrenched in their own silos, and the executive team was locked in constant internal conflict. Her approach was methodical. She didn't just look at spreadsheets and profit margins. Olivia conducted extensive interviews, spending time with every level of the organization. She listened, truly listened, to the stories of individual employees, understanding their frustrations, their dreams, their untapped potential. The turnaround wasn't quick, and it wasn't easy. She implemented a radical restructuring that went beyond typical corporate strategies. Communication channels were redesigned. Leadership training programs were developed. Most importantly, she helped the company rediscover its original mission and passion. Within 18 months, the company not only became profitable, but was recognized as a model of innovative corporate culture. 200 jobs were saved, and the company went on to become a major player in its industry. But the victory came with a personal cost. Olivia pulled out a worn photograph from her notebook. It was a picture of her parents, her father, a high school teacher, her mother, a community social worker. They had instilled in her a deep belief in the power of opportunity and fair treatment. Her own journey hadn't been easy. As a first-generation college student, she'd faced countless obstacles. Scholarships, hard work, and an unyielding determination had been her tools. Each professional challenge was more than just a job. It was a chance to create meaningful change. The consulting world could be brutal. Success was measured in dollars and efficiency metrics. But Olivia had always believed that true success was about people, their growth, their potential, their dignity. Her current assignment with Westfield Retail was different from her previous projects. It wasn't about saving a multi-million-dollar company. It was about something more fundamental, addressing systemic issues in workplace management, one store at a time. The regional corporate office had approached her quietly. They had been tracking her previous work, impressed by her ability to create transformative change. Their retail chain was facing subtle but significant challenges: high turnover rates, low employee morale, inconsistent management practices. Olivia's laptop screen displayed a complex spreadsheet: data points, employee feedback, performance metrics, a comprehensive analysis of not just Westfield Retail, but the entire regional operation. Each number told a story. Each data point represented a human experience. She thought about her interview with Eric Thompson. His approach was a textbook example of toxic management, designed to maintain control through intimidation and marginalization. But she saw beyond his surface-level behavior. There was potential for change, a possibility of growth. Her phone buzzed. A message from the regional director: "Everything is set. Proceed as discussed." This was more than just a job. It was an opportunity to challenge a system, to demonstrate that effective leadership was about empowerment, not control. Olivia Rodriguez wasn't just a consultant. She was an architect of professional transformation. As the coffee shop began to empty, Olivia continued her work. The sun set outside, casting long shadows. Another day of preparation, another step towards creating meaningful change. Little did the employees of Westfield Retail know, but their world was about to be transformed. And Eric Thompson was at the center of a professional journey he could never have anticipated. The corporate headquarters of Horizon Retail Group occupied a modern glass building on the outskirts of the city. Sleek and impersonal, it stood as a testament to corporate efficiency. Inside a conference room on the top floor, a small group of executives reviewed a confidential report that would change everything. Mark Henderson, the regional vice president, spread Olivia Rodriguez's preliminary findings across the polished conference table. Her report was unlike any he had seen before. A comprehensive analysis that went far beyond standard performance metrics. "These numbers are remarkable," he muttered, tracing a finger along a graph showing employee turnover rates. The data told a story of systematic dysfunction across multiple stores in the region. Catherine Chen, the head of human resources, leaned forward. "It's not just about numbers," she said. "Olivia has identified a pattern of management practices that are actively harmful to our organization." The report was a surgical dissection of their retail operations. Each store was more than just a location. It was an ecosystem of human interactions, leadership dynamics, and organizational culture. Olivia had mapped out these ecosystems with unprecedented detail. At Westfield Retail, her focus was Eric Thompson. His management style wasn't just ineffective. It was a critical weakness in their entire operational structure. Years of unchecked behavior had created a toxic environment that suppressed employee potential and damaged the company's reputation. Behind the scenes, Horizon Retail Group was at a crossroads. The retail landscape was changing rapidly. Traditional management models were becoming obsolete. They needed a radical approach to stay competitive. Olivia's previous work had caught their attention. Her transformation of the tech startup wasn't just a case study. It was a blueprint for organizational change. The regional leadership saw an opportunity to implement a similar approach across their retail stores. "We're not just looking to replace managers," Mark explained to the team. "We're looking to transform our entire leadership philosophy." The plan was intricate. Olivia would be sent to multiple stores, disguised as a potential management candidate. Her true mission was to conduct an in-depth assessment of leadership practices, identify potential for growth, and create a comprehensive transformation strategy. Westfield Retail was just the beginning. If successful, this approach could be rolled out across the entire regional operation. Catherine pulled up a detailed profile of Eric Thompson. Years of performance reviews, employee feedback, and management reports painted a complex picture. He was a product of an outdated management system, rigid, controlling, resistant to change. "He's not a bad person," Catherine said softly. "He's a result of a broken system that rewards this type of leadership." The team reviewed Olivia's proposed intervention strategy. It wasn't about punishment. It was about education, growth, and creating opportunities for meaningful change. Mark checked his watch. The first phase of the plan was already in motion. Olivia was moving through the initial stages of her assessment at Westfield Retail. Her interview with Eric was just the first step in a much larger process. "We're taking a risk," he acknowledged to the team, "but the potential reward is significant." The retail industry was changing. Employee expectations had shifted. Companies that couldn't adapt would be left behind. This was more than a management assessment. It was a strategic reimagining of workplace culture. Olivia's approach was holistic. She didn't just see Eric as a problem to be solved. She saw him as a potential catalyst for change. Every manager, every employee had untapped potential. The key was creating the right environment for that potential to emerge. Back at Westfield Retail, nobody knew about the conversations happening in this glass-walled conference room. The store continued its daily routine. customers browsing, employees stocking shelves, Eric managing as he always had. But change was coming. Quietly, systematically, inexorably. Mark gathered the reports, preparing for their next meeting. Olivia Rodriguez was more than consultant. She was an agent of transformation, about to challenge everything Eric Thompson thought he knew about leadership. The corporate clock was ticking, and nothing would be the same again. The regional management conference room felt like a pressure cooker of unspoken tension. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the faces of assembled managers and executives. Eric Thompson sat near the back, his crisp button-down shirt suddenly feeling too tight, his collar restricting his breathing. He had received the cryptic meeting invitation 2 days earlier. Mandatory attendance, no exceptions. Most of the regional managers looked equally confused. Some whispered among themselves, trading theories about budget cuts or performance reviews. Mark Henderson, the regional vice president, stood at the front of the room. His demeanor was calm, almost too calm. Eric knew Mark from previous meetings, a by-the-book executive who rarely showed emotion. But today, something felt different. "We're here to discuss the future of our retail operations," Mark began, his voice measured and professional. "Over the past few months, we've conducted a comprehensive assessment of our leadership practices." Eric felt a bead of sweat form on his forehead. Assessment. The word hung in the air like a threat. Catherine Chen from Human Resources clicked a remote, and a series of graphs appear on the screen. Performance metrics, employee satisfaction rates, turnover statistics. Eric recognized some of the data from his own store, but something was different. The numbers looked unflattering. "Each of you represents a critical part of our organization," Mark continued. "But our data reveals significant challenges in our current management approach." The presentation moved forward. Store after store, the same patterns emerged. Declining employee morale, increased turnover, stagnant performance. What had seemed like isolated incidents now appeared to be a systemic problem. Eric's mind raced. He had always prided himself on running a tight ship. His store met its basic performance targets. What could they possibly find wrong with his management style? Then she walked in. Olivia Rodriguez entered the conference room with a confidence that immediately drew every eye. Her navy blazer was perfectly pressed, her portfolio tucked neatly under her arm. But this was different from their previous encounter. Here, she moved with an authority that transformed the entire room's energy. Mark nodded to her, a subtle gesture of respect. "I'd like to introduce the consultant who has been conducting our comprehensive leadership assessment." The pieces began to fall into place. The interview, the probing questions, the detailed examination of his store. Eric felt a cold realization wash over him. Olivia stepped forward, her presentation began. Each slide was a precise dissection of leadership practices across the regional stores. But Eric's store received special attention. Detailed employee interviews, performance data, management interaction analyses. Everything lay bare. The room grew silent. She didn't attack. She didn't ridicule. Instead, Olivia presented a clinical, compassionate analysis of systemic leadership challenges. Eric's management style was revealed not as a personal failure, but as a product of outdated organizational practices. Employee testimonials appear on the screen. Anonymous quotes that painted a stark picture of workplace culture. Moments of dismissal. Opportunities for growth left unexplored. Potential crushed under rigid management approaches. Eric felt exposed. Every assumption he had made about effective leadership was being challenged, not with anger or accusation, but with data, with human stories. Mark stepped forward. "This isn't about blame," he explained to the room. "This is about opportunity, about understanding how we can become better leaders." Olivia's final slides offered a path forward, not punishment, but transformation. Leadership development programs, new approaches to employee engagement, a complete reimagining of what management could look like. When the presentation concluded, the room was charged with a mix of emotions: defensiveness, shock, for some, a glimmer of hope. Eric sat frozen. The woman he had tried to dismiss during that initial interview had just systematically demonstrated the limitations of his entire professional approach. Not through aggression, but through understanding. Their eyes met across the conference room. No triumph, no gloating, just a moment of profound professional recognition. The world Eric Thompson had known was about to change, and he was at the center of a transformation he never saw coming. The Leadership Development Center looked nothing like Eric Thompson expected. Located in a renovated warehouse on the outskirts of the city, it was a far cry from the sterile corporate training rooms he experienced before. Large windows flooded the space with natural light, and flexible learning spaces replaced traditional classroom setups. His first day of the intensive leadership transformation program felt like walking into enemy territory. Eric had been given a choice: complete the comprehensive program or lose his management position. But this was more than a simple requirement. It was a complete professional deconstruction. Olivia Rodriguez wasn't his instructor, but her influence was everywhere. The program she had designed went far beyond typical management training. It was a holistic approach to understanding leadership, human potential, and organizational dynamics. The morning began with a session on emotional intelligence. Eric had always considered such topics soft and unnecessary. Feelings had no place in business, he had always believed. But the facilitator, a seasoned organizational psychologist, challenged everything he thought he knew. Leadership is about connection, the facilitator explained, not control. They began with a deep dive into personal history. Participants were asked to explore the roots of their management styles. Eric found himself reluctantly sharing stories from his past. His father's rigid approach to work, the competitive environment of his early career, the pressure to prove himself in a changing workplace. The first week was the most challenging. Each day peeled back another layer of Eric's professional persona. Group exercises forced participants to confront their biases, examine their communication patterns, and understand the impact of their leadership choices. One particularly intense session involved role-playing scenarios. Eric watched himself on video, seeing for the first time how his management style created barriers rather than opportunities. His dismissive comments, his body language, the subtle ways he undermined employee potential, all laid bare. This isn't about making you feel bad, Olivia had explained during an introductory session. This is about creating awareness, about understanding how we can be better. The program wasn't just theoretical. Participants were given real-world challenges. They worked with actual employee teams, implementing new leadership approaches, receiving immediate feedback. Eric found himself learning more from his employees than he had in years of management. A turning point came during a session on inclusive leadership. Eric was forced to confront his own unconscious biases, the subtle ways he had limited opportunities for employees who didn't fit his narrow view of potential. The facilitators used a combination of psychological assessments, practical exercises, and deep reflective work. It was a complete professional rehabilitation program. Each participant was treated as an individual with unique challenges and opportunities for growth. Eric's cohort was diverse. Managers from different backgrounds, different stores, different life experiences. Some were defensive, some were eager to learn, but all were committed to the process of transformation. Midway through the program, participants were asked to develop a personal leadership philosophy. Not a mission statement, but a genuine reflection of their values, their understanding of leadership, their vision for creating positive workplace environments. Eric's initial draft was mechanical, filled with corporate jargon. The facilitators pushed him to dig deeper, to understand leadership as a form of human connection, not just a hierarchical position. Leadership is about creating space for others to grow, one of the instructors repeatedly emphasized. It was a concept that challenged everything Eric had previously believed. The program wasn't just about changing Eric. It was about helping him understand the broader context of workplace dynamics. Sessions on organizational psychology, communication theory, and human potential provided a comprehensive view of leadership. By the fourth week, something fundamental had shifted. Eric began to see his employees not as resources to be managed, but as individuals with unique potential. He started listening more, speaking less, creating opportunities instead of enforcing rigid rules. The transformation wasn't complete, but it had begun. As the sun set on another intensive day of training, Eric looked out the large windows of the learning center. The world looked different. His understanding of leadership, of human potential, was being completely reconstructed. Olivia's approach wasn't about punishment. It was about potential, about creating leaders who could truly support and elevate their teams. And Eric Thompson was about to become a different kind of leader. The conference room at Westfield Retail felt different. Gone were the rigid barriers, the oppressive silence that once defined Eric Thompson's management style. Today, he stood before his entire team, vulnerability etched across his face. 6 months had passed since the Leadership Transformation Program. Eric had been tasked with the most challenging assignment of his career, rebuilding trust with the very employees he had previously marginalized. "I want to speak honestly," he began, his voice wavering slightly. The words didn't come easily. Years of defensive management had taught him to never show weakness. But everything had changed. Around the room, employees exchanged cautious glances. They had witnessed Eric's transformation, but trust was not something earned overnight. Some remained skeptical, their arms crossed, their expressions guarded. Lisa Martinez, a long-time employee who had been passed over for promotions multiple times, listened intently. She remembered the old Eric, dismissive, quick to judge, creating an environment of fear rather than opportunity. Eric pulled out a stack of documents, performance reviews, employee feedback, personal reflections from his leadership training. "I'm going to share something difficult," he continued. "For years, I failed you as a leader. I created barriers instead of opportunities." He began to detail specific instances, times when he had dismissed employee suggestions, moments when he had made assumptions that limited individual potential. Each confession was a carefully considered acknowledgement of his past failures. The room grew silent. Lisa remembered a moment 3 years earlier when she had proposed a new inventory management system. Eric had dismissed her idea without a second thought, suggesting she should focus on her current responsibilities. Now that same system was being implemented company-wide, developed by another manager in a different store. Eric's accountability went beyond words. He had worked with the regional leadership to create actual structural changes. Promotion pathways were redesigned. Communication channels were opened. Performance evaluations became collaborative conversations rather than top-down assessments. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Eric explained. "I'm asking for an opportunity to be a different kind of leader." The transformation wasn't just personal. It was systemic. Eric had become an advocate for the very changes he once resisted. He worked closely with Olivia Rodriguez and the regional leadership to implement comprehensive workplace culture initiatives. Training programs were developed. Mentorship opportunities were created. The entire approach to management was being reimagined. During a break, Lisa approached Eric. Their conversation was tense, cautious. "Why now?" she asked. "Why this change?" Eric's response was honest. He shared insights from his leadership training, the profound understanding he had gained about leadership as a form of human connection. He spoke about unconscious biases, about the ways traditional management approaches had limited both individual and organizational potential. The accountability extended beyond individual conversations. Eric participated in company-wide forums, sharing his journey of transformation. He became a case study in professional growth, demonstrating that change was possible. Olivia Rodriguez observed from a distance. This was more than a single management intervention. It was a blueprint for organizational transformation. The employees of Westfield Retail watched carefully. Some remained skeptical. Others saw genuine potential for change. But everyone recognized that something fundamental had shifted. Performance metrics began to change. Employee satisfaction scores improved. The store's productivity increased. But more importantly, the workplace culture was being rebuilt from the ground up. Eric's transformation became a topic of discussion beyond their single store. Other managers in the regional chain began to take notice. The leadership development program expanded, creating a ripple effect of positive change. By the end of the meeting, something had fundamentally changed. The walls of defensiveness were coming down. Conversations that were once impossible were now happening openly, honestly. Lisa was the first to speak after a long silence. "It won't be easy," she said, "but I'm willing to try." Eric nodded. No triumph, no defensiveness, just a genuine commitment to growth. The journey of accountability had begun, and with it, the possibility of true leadership. 1 year after the initial leadership intervention, Westfield retail had become unrecognizable. The store was no longer just a place of commerce, but a model of progressive workplace culture. Eric Thompson stood at the front of the store, preparing for the regional leadership showcase. Horizon Retail Group had selected Westfield as a demonstration site for their new management approach. Executives, regional managers, and potential leaders from across the company would be touring the facility. The transformation was comprehensive. What had once been a rigid, top-down environment was now a collaborative workspace. Open communication channels, mentorship programs, and innovative employee development initiatives had completely reshaped the store's culture. Olivia Rodriguez arrived early that morning, her presence both familiar and transformative. She had become more than a consultant, she was a strategic partner in the company's cultural revolution. The tour began precisely at 9:00 a.m. Mark Henderson, the regional vice president, led the group. Executives walked through the store, observing something entirely different from traditional retail environments. Employees worked with a sense of purpose that went beyond simple job requirements. Cross-training programs allowed staff to explore different roles. A dedicated learning center in the back of the store offered continuous education opportunities. Performance metrics were no longer about individual sales, but about team growth and collective achievement. Eric spoke candidly about the transformation. "This isn't about creating a perfect workplace," he explained to the group. "It's about creating an environment of continuous learning and mutual respect." Lisa Martinez, once a marginalized employee, now led the store's professional development program. She shared her own journey, from feeling undervalued to becoming a key leader in the organization. Her story was a testament to the power of genuine organizational change. The most striking changes were subtle. Communication boards displayed team achievements. Collaborative spaces replaced traditional break rooms. Performance reviews had become meaningful conversations about personal and professional growth. Olivia watched carefully, her strategic vision coming to life. This was more than a single store transformation. It was a blueprint for reimagining workplace culture. During a tea and a session, one of the executives asked the critical question, "How did this happen? How do you sustain this type of change?" Eric and Olivia exchanged a knowing glance. The answer wasn't simple. It had been a journey of personal and professional transformation, of breaking down systemic barriers, of reimagining leadership. It started with accountability, Eric explained. Not just individual accountability, but organizational accountability. We had to be willing to look at ourselves honestly to understand the impact of our actions. The regional leadership team documented everything. Other stores would soon begin similar transformation processes. What had seemed impossible a year ago was now becoming a standard approach. Olivia's approach had been strategic and compassionate. She didn't seek to destroy existing structures, but to help them evolve. Each intervention was designed to unlock potential, to create environments where employees could truly thrive. As the tour concluded, Mark Henderson pulled Olivia aside. "We want to expand this approach across all our regional stores," he said. "Your methodology has changed everything." The success went beyond internal metrics. Customer satisfaction had increased. Employee retention rates had dramatically improved. The store was now a destination for top talent, a place where people wanted to build their careers. Lisa approached Eric after the tour. Their relationship had transformed from one of tension to mutual respect. "We've come a long way," she said, a smile breaking across her face. Eric nodded. The journey hadn't been easy. It had required vulnerability, honesty, and a willingness to completely reconstruct his understanding of leadership. As the day wound down, Olivia reflected on the broader impact. This wasn't just about one store or one company. It was about reimagining workplace dynamics, about creating environments that valued human potential. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the store. Everything looked different, not just the physical space, but the very essence of how people worked together. A transformation was complete, but in many ways, it was just the beginning.